Essential EGL+Batch. This is based on EGL Development Tools version 0.8. So the first thing we want to do today is we want to create a new package. This is lesson 8. So we're going to create a new package called lab.lesson08. You've seen this before. And from the package, right-click on the package, we're going to create a new library. The library is going to be called intlib, I-N-T-L-I-B. The first thing I want to do is I want to add a private constant integer called loop_max. This will make it very easy for me to set the number of times that we go through a loop. And I'm going to have a function called demo, which is not private, so it can be called outside the library. And then I'm going to create a private function called countup. This function is going to count from 1 upward. I'll create a variable called imax, which is an integer, and we'll set that equal to loop_max, the constant. And then this is the syntax for constructing a loop. It's for I int from 1 to imax by 1. And then inside the loop, I'm just going to write out the value of I. So that'll count up. Oh, and we have to put in the start function and end function, so we know where we are in the code. Now, I put in both statements, and then I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go down to EGL source and organize formats. So it's EGL source, organize imports, I mean. And there are 3 libraries called batchlib. I want to take the one from lesson 6. When there's more than one. So we'll create another function, another private function, and this time it'll be called countdown. So we'll have to do the usual. But let me demonstrate that if you actually continue typing after you do a dot and pause, you can type the first character in a name, and then the list will shorten to match those that start with just that character. Let me do that again. So you see that we have just end function and end program in the list. Okay, to our loop. Again, we're going to do imax equals loop max, and it's an integer. And then this is the syntax for counting down. It's I int from imax to 1 decrement by 1. So there is a distinction made between counting up and counting down in EGL. Now we'll print I on the console. Next, we want to add a function to display an array of integers. Let's work with an array of integers now. And we use an int as an index for an array. So an integer has no decimal part, so it's a whole number. And this time I will actually quickly type the dot and the first 2 characters of the function name. And when I hit Control space, let me do that again. When I hit Control space, it'll fill in the rest of the name of the function for me. Okay, so here's how we develop an array. It's list is the name of the variable, int, and then open square bracket, close square bracket is the type. It's an array of int. And then we can actually fill in values for the array using the square bracket and then a comma delimited list. So now this is going to be an array, and arrays are always variable in size, but this is a convenient way of initializing. And then I want to build a function to use repeatedly here that enables us to display the array. And it's going to take two parameters, the array of values, which is the array of integers, and the second parameter will be a position that we want to highlight or emphasize. So again, in the function, it's the list and int open square bracket close square bracket is the type. List is the name of the variable, and it's integer. It's an in parameter, which means it's not updatable within this function. So we can't make assignments to the list variable. Now, as far as the content of show integer array, instead of typing it in one line at a time, I think I'll just paste it and then review it. What we have is a variable called message, and it's a string with a question mark, which we've seen before, which means it's a nullable string. And although I don't have to, I'm going to explicitly set it to null. It's easier to read. It's easier for the next programmer to understand. Now, list.getSize is how we find the size of an array. And then we do the count up part to count through the array of things. And then list open square bracket I is what enables us to get a value, and we'll assign it to string. Now, on the right side, it's an integer, and on the left side, it's a string, so there's an implied conversion. Now, explicitly, that would be the as operator, where I can actually say as string, which it'll convert to from one type to another with the keyword as. But I'll put it back to just implied. If the current position is equal to the position that's given, I'll add an asterisk. And then if message is null, which means it's the first time through the loop, or I could have written that I equals 1, I'll set the message. Otherwise, I'm going to use this plus equals operator to append additional text to the message. So that should give me a nice evaluation of the array, a nice content of the array. There's a couple of things we want to do with arrays to show how to work it. So let me first set the value of one of the elements in the array. And again, position is an integer, but the concatenation operator, which is : it implies an as string. You can write that explicitly, or it's implied that it's adding an integer to a string. To set a particular position, we put list open square bracket and then the index and close square bracket on the left-hand side of the assignment statement. So we can assign position 3 to 15. So it was 11. We're going to change it to 15. And then I'll use the show integer array, and I did the control space to finish typing out the name of the function. It's pretty smart. Okay, then I'm going to work with adding a value to an array. The value that I want to add is 35. The way that we add a value to an array is with the append element. There's quite a few things that you can do with a list, one of them being append element. And when we have an integer array, then we can add an integer. So that adds an integer to the list. It's adding, not as in mathematically adding, but it's adding as in putting an additional element in there, like so that the array looks something like that with a 35 at the end. So arrays are always dynamic when they're declared like this, using this syntax. And use the list get size, so we'll print out or emphasize the last value in the array because the array size has changed. So the next thing I want to do is remove a value from the list, and it's removed based on its position. So we're going to remove it from position 2. So that we'll drop the 10 out of the list. To remove an element is list.removeElement. And takes parameter of the position. So it's removing based on the position. I'll save the file. And now what we're going to do is add a new program. So it'll be called lesson 08. And basically we'll call the main function is going to call intlib.demo. I wanted to show that the import is at the top of each of the source code. So the program is not going to inherit the imports from the library. And let me do this again. It's right-click, EGL source, and organize imports. Now, since there's more than one thing that's called batchlib, we have to choose one. If there's just one thing called batchlib, then it's filled in for us. Another way to do that is the fully qualified name of the batch library. So it's lab.lesson6.batchlib. It's another name for the same thing. But the import statement is a convenience so that you can easily change, easily maintain the code when you have multiple occurrences of batchlib, that it's consolidated at the top of the file. I forgot a line of code in the show integer array function, so let me type that in now. Okay, that looks a little bit better. And we'll run it again. Okay. So here's an original array of integers, and it has an 11 in position 3. Then we set the value at position 3 to 15, and there it is, 15. Adding a value of 35 adds a value at the end. Removing a value at position 2, the 10 is gone. This has been another lesson in Essential EGL Batch. Thanks for watching.